Now we do have a built-in ruler in Pages, and it's not enabled by default, but it's useful enough that I'd recommend turning it on whilst you're learning how to use the app. And as with most things here, there's a few ways to access it. So first you can come over to the View button, then come down to Show Ruler. Alternatively, you can come up to the View menu and down to Show Ruler here. Or, as I'm sure you just saw, just press Command and R. And you'll see it appears immediately below the toolbar, spanning the width of the document. So it shows the left and right indent markers for the current paragraph, and you can click and move to adjust that indent. And we're not going to dive into the ruler too much at the moment, but what we'll do is I'm going to go into settings and just show you there is a rulers tab here where at the top you can change the units. So I currently deal with centimeters, but you may wish to have a different metric. I'll just move that down so you can see how that looks. Of course, I need to put it back to centimeters. Now you may want to enable some of these options, like making sure the origin is at the center there. We can see that's where our 0 is. You can display the ruler units as a percentage instead, not something that I often need. And if the layout of the page is important enough to warrant a vertical ruler, then you can have that appear as well. Now, one of the advantages of having a dedicated zoom button here is I've just moved this out to 150% because I didn't realize in that last bit the inspector was just covering up the right-hand side of the document a little. So now a little bit easier to view here. Now, if you are getting started with Pages, I do recommend another couple of settings here to perhaps enable as you get yourself acquainted. The first one, under View down here, you will see you've got Show Layout. And whilst these won't, of course, be visible when you print or send your finished document, this just gives you a little bit of a guideline as to where the margins are here. And we've got the 3 elements here for the header. And if I scroll down to the bottom, we can see the 3 elements for the footer as well. I'll just come back up. And then the next feature that you might want to have on, especially if you're manipulating text and find it's doing some strange things that you're not expecting, well, you can show invisibles. And what this does is it reveals all of those hidden characters. So the dots between words. If I press the return key, you'll see that inverted P there. Well, that's a paragraph return. And if I press the tab key a couple of times, you'll see those tab arrows there. One more that can be quite useful is when I press Shift and return. This is known as a soft return and doesn't start a new paragraph. And being able to see these characters can be extremely useful when you're trying to format the layout of your document. You can quickly show or hide them with Shift, Command and I. And what else do we have here? Well, at the bottom, you can see that we've got a word count. And if for any reason it isn't here, just come up to View and then down here. Of course, this says hide word count at the moment because it's on. But if it's not there, this is going to say show word count. And then on the word count itself, you can click to actually change what's displayed. So we've got the number of characters without spaces, characters with spaces, the number of words, number of paragraphs, or the number of pages. Okay, this may be a getting started video, but I'm not going to go into the basics of typing. We're going to assume that we know how to use the keyboard to get the text on the screen. Selecting text and manipulating it though, that's a completely different thing. Of course, you can select single characters or multiple strings of text by just clicking and dragging. That's pretty easy, but sometimes it can be fiddly to select exactly where you want, or it can just take time. Well, a couple of quick shortcuts are if you double click anywhere within a word, it's going to highlight the whole word. And if you triple click, it's going to highlight the whole paragraph. If you want to select a passage of text, but it's not necessarily the whole paragraph, sometimes dragging to a particular place can be tricky, but what you can do is if you just double click to highlight a word, then find the end of the text that you want to select. If you press the Shift key whilst clicking, you'll see that text is selected exactly. I'll just press Escape to clear that selection. And if you want to select all of the text from a certain place to the end of the document, you can double click to select the word again, and then press Shift and End whilst clicking. And you'll see that's taken us to the end. And of course, as with most applications, if you want to highlight all of the text in a document, just press Command and A. Now let's take a look at some of the formatting options we've got available to us. So up here, we've got paragraph styles, and we've got a whole section dedicated to that very soon. Then here in the style section, you'll see we can change the fonts. And of course, there are lots here, but you can key in the first letter of the font to quickly jump, and then use the arrow keys to select a new one. There are several pre-built typefaces underneath this drop down here. Then you can adjust the font size either with these up and down arrows, or you can simply select the text in here and then type in some custom numbers. Below that, we've got our standard bold, italicize, underline, and strike through. And we've got some more text options underneath this cog here. Generally, these are more advanced options that for the day-to-day use we have, you're probably not going to need to use. I certainly can't remember the last time I needed to touch them. You can create a new character style as a preset or choose one of these existing ones. So red bold here automatically changes it to 16-point text. It's bolded and a red color. You can change the text color with this button here. Then we've got various text alignment options that will apply to the paragraph where your selection currently is. And you'll see that there are lots of those options available up here in the menu bar as well. So down here under font, you can see as well the relevant keyboard shortcuts on the right, which can be useful to get to these quickly. And then we've got some text options here as well. Now, if you have some text formatted in a style that you like, so we'll take the word pages here. I'm going to make this bold and I'm going to change the color to blue. Now we've got a couple of options of how we can apply this elsewhere. So one is to come up here to format and then down to copy style, or I could press Option, Command and C. Then if I select another word or some text, I can come back up to format and then paste the style. And you can see it's inherited the style nicely there. But using the menu bar each time can be a little bit of a faff. So I'm just going to use Option, Command and V for every instance where I want to paste that style. Now that's okay for one-off changes that I want to make, but what if that particular style is something I know I'm going to need to use again and again? Well, it'd be a good idea to create my own character style. I'll just come over here, click on the drop down, and I'll click plus to add a new one. This means I can add my own preset now, and we can see the preview of how it looks. I'll give it a name, so I'll call it Blue Bold. And now I'm going to have this available as a preset for me, which can be a bit of a time saver. Now we're going to move into paragraph styles soon, but before we do, I just need to make sure it's fully understood what a paragraph is in Pages. At the end of this text here, I'm just going to press the return key and type in a sentence. Is this a new paragraph? And let's see, the easiest way to tell is to actually come up here and then triple click, because we know that's going to highlight the whole paragraph, and it does. So that line that we just added, well, that is a separate paragraph. But I wanted it on a new line. I didn't want it as a whole paragraph on its own. So how do I do that without pressing the return key? Well, if I key in my shortcut to show the invisibles, I can see that inverted P after the word document there. So that's the paragraph break. I'm going to delete that and I'm going to replace it with a soft return. And I do that with Shift and Return. And we can see that has a different icon. If I hide those invisibles and then triple click once more, we can see that new line is indeed part of the existing paragraph there.